What is good, everyone? Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be answering the question, in the year 2020, would I still consider coming to Japan and living here, putting down roots for the long term? Let's discuss it. To begin with, once travel starts up again and you're allowed to move from country to country, I would say that nothing has really changed in regards to anyone who wants to come here for the short term. And I don't mean short-term tourist, I mean to live for a while. If you want to come here and make money for a while, send money home, because it economically makes sense for you to do that, that'll still be possible. If you want to come here and teach English for a few years, travel around Japan and see other countries in Asia, that's still perfectly fine to do as well. What I'm going to be addressing is it a good thing in 2020 to actually still consider coming here and staying for the long term? Would I still do it now, like I did back in 2008? I think the most honest way for me to answer this question is to just lay out what worries me personally about living in Japan long term as a foreigner. So when you listen to these worries of mine, you can decide for yourself. Does it sound like something that, oh, that doesn't seem so bad, I could totally live with that, that wouldn't be a problem, in which case you might as well come here and give it a shot. If, however, you listen to what I have to say and you think, ooh, that one or those two are kind of deal breakers for me, then you may want to consider just coming for a short time in that case. So before I actually dive into the 3 things I've decided to talk about, if you like this video, please remember to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. I drop a new video every single Friday, so I have a lot of past content and I'll have a lot of new content coming out soon, so subscribe so you can keep up with that. All right, the first one that is a worry, not just for me, but for many, if not all foreigners in Japan, is stability. The fact of the matter is, most employment contracts here are set up to be 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 years, and then you're going to have to find a new job or position. This goes for factory work or for most English education work, etc. And unless you've got really excellent credentials and a high command of Japanese ability, it's unlikely you're going to find yourself, at least immediately or even anytime soon, in a job that's essentially permanent. In the university teaching game, there is basically a musical chairs that happens every 3 years, where people have to leave the job they're in, the contract they're on, and find a new university to work for. And you've got people who have been doing this for years. And if you're young, or more importantly, if you're single, that might be great. I have a friend who's lived in Nagoya, Hiroshima, Kyoto, Yokohama, Tokyo. He's bounced around and it's been a new adventure in each place. And if that's what you're into, then this is no problem. But if you have a family, if you have a spouse who works, if you have children who are going to school, you want to own a house, these are all things that are going to make that stability question all the more important. And lack of stability is one of the biggest reasons why foreigners leave Japan. Number 2, this one is actually really topical because of recent news and recent things going on. Everywhere in the world has closed their borders to travelers because of the coronavirus. So Japan is no different in this regard. However, Japan is the only G7 nation to include permanent residents in this travel ban. While it makes total sense to keep tourists and short-term business travelers out of the country to help curb the spread of COVID, being the only nation that has kept out permanent residence means they've kept people away from their homes and basically their entire lives. Permanent residents are clearly different from tourists because they've got their home here, which means they've got to pay rent or mortgage. They've got to pay bills like all of their utility bills. Their job is here, so they may be fired and lose their position because they're not here to actually work. Their family could be here if they've got family that they left behind here when they traveled out of the country, when the ban came into place, and so, you know, mother or father is stuck outside of the country. One of the hardest cases I've heard about, and there's about 18,000 foreigners for whom this is actually affected. There's a young woman who, she was born in Japan, raised in Japan, but her parents are Indian, and so her passport is Indian. She was in Canada studying at a university, and her time there was up. She graduated, and so that means her student visa to Canada was expired. But she couldn't return to Japan because she had an Indian passport, not a Japanese passport. And it's not like she can just pop to Korea or somewhere else on a tourist visa until she can get back into Japan, because everyone's closed their borders to tourists. So what's she going to do? Basically, she has to go to India, where she's never lived and doesn't really know anyone. And you've got 18,000 various stories along these lines. And the reason why this is a worry for me is because it shows truth to the thing that I think many of foreigners have sort of feared in the back of their heads, but didn't have real direct evidence that it would be the case. And that is Japanese officialdom, in this case the national government and foreign office, treating long-term residents as real second-class citizens. And when push comes to shove, we are not going to have any rights or privileges whatsoever, even though we have our entire lives here. Our tax paying is here. Everything we own is here. It doesn't seem to matter, because the press coverage I saw of government officials' responses was really blasé. They just didn't really seem to care all that much about this. And it's only just gone away. So, yeah, it makes me worry a little bit about the future. Where else is this going to pop up? I mean, I wasn't personally affected this time, but in the future I might be. It's not that far-fetched to think, well, maybe in the future they'll just decide because of demographics they can't pay pensions out to foreigners. So I've paid into the pension system 40 years and, oh, sorry, that's gonna go to someone else and you're just out of luck. I mean, that might not happen, but it certainly seems like more in the realm of possibility now that we've already seen how they were going to treat permanent residents during a pandemic. And that's another thing. Kept out of the country during a pandemic. You know, can you imagine if you were traveling in the US and you didn't have health insurance there and you caught COVID? Your Japanese health insurance isn't going to do you much good. Now, this may seem like I'm bashing Japan or being negative about Japan. That's not it. I stated at the beginning that this is really just me being honest about the things that I worry about or I find worrisome about being here. And obviously they're not deal breakers for me because, well, I'm still here and I still have no plans of leaving. For those of you who think I'm bashing Japan, the third and final one will refresh you because now it's time to bash America. If you're American, you should definitely listen to this. If you're not American, but you want to hear me bash America, keep listening. If you have no interest in my problem as an American, then smash that like button and I will catch you next Friday. Now, the final one is an American citizen issue. And that is, talking about stupid policies, excluding people, or in this case, including people. The US is the only major nation to require tax filing and payment of taxes of its citizens abroad. No other nation does this. And what that does is, on a yearly basis, create headaches for me, but it also creates the potential in the future that I'm going to be hit with some tax bill I was unaware was going to be coming up, because I own some kind of financial product in Japan that it turns out I'm not allowed to own tax-free in America. I mean, there's a lot of things that I cannot invest in as an American in Japan because they may be tax exempt here, but they would not be tax exempt in the States, which creates major issues. There's even been cases where Americans have been refused bank accounts in some countries because America has really strict reporting laws that they put on financial institutions, and financial institutions have just said, well, forget it, we're just not going to have American customers, it's not worth the trouble. Luckily that doesn't exist in Japan yet, but you know, that's potential. And so the inability to invest in certain things, even though I live in Japan, because I have to worry about American tax liability, and the fact that I might make a mistake somewhere along the way, so America hits me with some giant tax bill that I wasn't expecting, with penalties and everything. It's, you know, maybe an impetus for taking Japanese citizenship in the future, because it would solve my second worry that I talked about of being treated as a non-Japanese, and it would mean I have no tax liability in the States anymore. I haven't gotten that extreme yet to actually consider this, but well, I won't say that it's out of the question. So, what do you think? Do you think my worries are well-founded? Are they something that would bother you? Do you live here and have additional worries that you want to talk about? Please comment below. And again, remember to like and subscribe if you haven't at this point of the video. You've made it this far. You must have liked it to stick together this long, so smash that like button, and I will see you next Friday. Thanks for watching this one.